Griffin, and I'm here today for a halfway through May wrap up, because I'm thinking that by the time May is over I'll probably have read a good few more books and the wrap up will just be too long, so I've decided to split it into two parts. So the first book that I've read 7 books in total so far this month, which is pretty good going, so I'm pretty happy. So the first book I read was Unremembered by Brody. I read it on my Kindle, and I did enjoy it. This is basically about a girl wakes up and she apparently is the only survivor of this plane crash, and she's suffering from amnesia. But it's not normal amnesia. It's not just that she can't remember her name or who she is. It's she literally can't remember anything. So like, she wouldn't know what a TV is, she doesn't know what a hospital is, what nurses are, like she literally knows nothing. So this is just about this girl's journey into discovering who she is. There's this strange boy who seems to know her. He's telling her there's people after her, so it's all about that. I did enjoy it. I did enjoy the writing, but I felt like there was so much of an emphasis on how pretty she was. She's supposed to be absolutely gorgeous with these, like, you know, perfect tan skin, kind of brown honey hair, purple eyes, like violet eyes, and it's like everyone basically comments on her saying how gorgeous she is and how pretty she is, and I'm like, is that real life? Like, would people really, the first thing they say is how gorgeous you are when they don't even know you? I don't think so. I just thought there was way too much of an emphasis on her looks, and as well I felt like she kind of became this kind of sensation because she was the only survivor of this plane crash, and everywhere she was going people were putting cameras in her face and taking pictures of her, and I just can't help but feel that if there was someone that was the only survivor of this plane crash and someone saw them in the street, they'd have a bit more respect than running up and, you know, taking pictures of them while talking to them. And I don't know whether that's just here, like in Ireland, that probably wouldn't happen, but I just felt like that was so unrealistic. Now I know it's a book and it's not supposed to be realistic, but it was just one of those things that annoyed me about it. But overall, like, it wasn't a bad read. I'll probably continue with it just to see what happens. So I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. And then the next one I read was Zen Scarlet by Schoon. That was also on my Kindle. And this was a really surprising read for me. I really enjoyed it. And it is basically kind of a sci-fi fantasy about this girl. She's living on Mars and she is studying to be an exo-veterinarian, which is basically a veterinarian, but for alien creatures. So not just normal cats, dogs, horses, whatever. There's all these crazy creatures that she's taking care of. Like, there's one that's kind of supposed to look like a fat, spotty hyena with like a pig's tail, and I just thought it was really interesting. It was really funny to read and come up with my own kind of images of all these animals that were being described. I really liked that. And there's also kind of weird things happening, and Zen has to try and figure out what it is, and at the same time she's worried about her dad because she hasn't heard from her dad, and, you know, she's having feelings for one of the boys that works at her it's kind of called a cloister, which is basically like I keep thinking of it as a monastery because cloister just reminds me of monks, so I just keep imagining it as a monastery, but it's basically like kind of a big centre for animals. And then she also has to deal with trying to save the cloister from being shut down by the townspeople, who apparently don't actually like the alien animals. Even though they live in Mars, they don't like aliens, which makes no sense to me. But it was I think I just put this on my TBR because I think I'd probably entered a competition for it or something, or a giveaway like a few years ago. So it's just been sitting in my TBR, and I finally got it, and I wasn't really expecting much from it. I was like, oh, I'll read it, I'll see what I like, but I really enjoyed it, so I can't wait to read the next one because I think it's just going to be really good. So I think if there's anyone that likes kind of sci-fi, it's definitely like worth the read, I think. So I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And then after that I moved on to Drums of Autumn by Gabaldon, which is the 4th installment of the Outlander series. It's really long, which is the first thing. It's over 1100 pages long. I kind of have varying degrees of opinion on this book. the first half is mostly all Claire and Jamie. Then the second half, there's a lot of Brianna in it, who is Claire and Jamie's daughter, and she's actually in like the 1970s, so she has grown up in the future. Jamie knows he'll never meet her because obviously by the time she was born, like, he was dead hundreds of years. The whole blurb on the back of this book is talking about Brianna. Like, it's, how far will a woman travel to find a father, a lover, a destiny, across seas, across time, across the grave itself. And then the whole blurb is about Brianna travelling back in time to find her father, to try and make sure him and Claire don't end up dying in this accident, basically, that she read about. Brianna didn't travel back through the stones until page 600 and something. So that is halfway through the book. So the first half is just all Claire and Jamie and them settling in America and this, that and the other. And then it's only the other half that's all Brianna. I enjoyed the first half. It was a bit drawn out. I feel like Gabaldon, Diana, she tends to make 3 pages out of something that could just be 1 page, which ends up just kind of dragging the whole story out. But you kind of just deal with it. You like the characters, you enjoy the story, so you can just deal with that thing. But I did enjoy the first half, and then the second half with Brianna, no. I am not a fan of Brianna. I do not like her. She just irritated me. Stuff happened to her which was terrible. At the same time, I kind of figured out why she couldn't see that could happen to her when she was travelling back through time. And the way she was acting as well. But just the way she was acting, the way she was treating people, and she just irritated me beyond belief, and it just really, really annoyed me, so I couldn't deal with her. So what I was saying in my review on Goodreads, that I gave the first half 3 stars and the second half 2 stars. So overall, I'll give it a 2.5 stars, and I will continue on because I do like the series, but this book was definitely not my favourite one. I think my favourite one is still either the first or the second one. So yeah. And actually I read Chasing Daisy before Drums of Autumn, so I mixed that up. But Chasing Daisy by Paige Toon, which I briefly mentioned in my other video. I loved this book. 5 stars. This book is 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. Basically, Daisy is, she works on a team at works for a Formula 1 racing team. She's kind of, I think it's a bun hun, I think is what they call them. But she's basically, you know, she looks after the drivers and the team, and she does a bit of the catering, kind of running around, fetching, carrying, that kind of stuff. And it's basically, there's 2 different Formula 1 drivers that seem to catch her interest. They're 2 completely different kind of guys. You really don't know which one you want her to end up with. So it's kind of a ride. There's this big, massive shock twist in the middle that just makes you want to cry. Just so good. I finished it like in less than a day, so I gave it 5 stars, and it also has a nice little connection to Johnny Be Good, which is Paige Toon's other book. So I'd actually read the sequel to Johnny Be Good before I read this, so I ended up knowing who Daisy ended up with. I remembered that about a quarter of the way through this book, so I knew who she ended up with. I just didn't know how she ended up with the person. So that was really interesting to read, and it still just made me, everything just made me, you know, gasp out loud with it, which is always a sign of a good book. So I would recommend this for anyone who likes a bit of chicklet. And then I moved on to World War Z by Max Brooks, which I really enjoyed. Completely different to the movie. Like, you wouldn't even believe the movies were related to this, even though it just has the same name. I really enjoy this because I feel every other zombie movie, TV series, book is always focused on America. It's always what Americans do. And yeah, Americans, they're going to have guns. They're going to have all these weapons. Most of the world don't have that. Like, I'm thinking if the zombie apocalypse happened in Ireland, like, no one except farmers would have guns. So I'm not really sure how we would end up killing these zombies. Like, we'd be going around with like our hurley sticks, which are basically like a form of hockey stick, and that's what we'd be using to kill the zombies. But I don't know how it would work out. But This is interesting because it gave a different account. It was all as if it was like just a collection of records. It wasn't like a novel. So it was just about how different countries dealt with the virus from the start to the finish. From people, you know, in Pakistan, where they end up having kind of a nuclear war with, I think it was Iran, which was really interesting, I found. And then specific countries where, you know, they had to make sacrifices, and, you know, one with China, they went out to the sea, and seeing everyone else out in the sea, and how, you know, there was kind of rebel forces within the country, setting the country split apart. And I liked that the fact that there was still a semblance of government in all these different countries, where a lot of these zombie novels, the government always seems to just crumble and fall apart. There never seems to be any actual order going on. But all these countries, there was still a very definite order. There was still very definite that there was power, there was a leader. And that obviously helped fix the zombie problem. And it's like the world isn't healed. They're still finding zombies, they're still dealing with the apocalypse, but things are starting to get back to normal, which is grand, because sometimes I don't find that there's a real definite solution when it comes to zombies, and the zombie novels, there's never a huge solution at the end of it. But yes, so I did enjoy this. It was really good. So I gave that 4 out of 5 stars. And after that, I moved on to The Secret of Magic by Deborah Johnson, and just let's take a moment and look at the cover, because it's so pretty. That's why I picked it up, because it's just so pretty. And this is basically about Regina Mary Robichard, and she is a female black lawyer. She's a civil rights lawyer, so she makes sure that any black people who've been committed of crimes that, you know, white people at the time, it's 1946, that they would have just gotten away with. These people are being, you know, imprisoned and, you know, wrongfully discharged from the army, etc. So she deals with that. And this is how she's grown up in New York, but she has to travel back to Mississippi to try and solve the murder of this black soldier. So she's going into the heart of, you know, Jim Crow laws, where lynching it's pretty normal. It's they kind of just deal with it. No one really gets imprisoned for it. It's just one of these things that happen. Like, it's really, really awful. She has to deal with that. She has to, you know, curb her nature. She's from New York, so she is a bit more strong-willed than they would like, that they are used to, and she has to deal with how she's been treated in Mississippi the way she would have been treated in New York, which is quite different. So it was really good. I did enjoy it. It was one of those books that you kind of sink into, and you look up when you're finished, and you're kind of surprised that you're not in 1946 Mississippi, and you're back like at home, like in your bedroom, reading the book. So I did really enjoy it. And I kind of wished maybe the ending had been a bit more wrapped up. It felt like it kind of, I don't know whether I could say it fell flat, or it didn't quite resonate with me maybe, but I did enjoy it. The writing was very good, and yeah, so I think I want to go and read like Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry again, because she reminded me kind of what I would think Cassie would be like, because Cassie wanted to be a lawyer, so she reminds me kind of a grown-up Cassie. So I really want to go and read them again, because I loved those books growing up, which is by Mildred D. Taylor, I think. So I really want to go and read them again now after reading this. So yeah, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, I think. And then I moved on to my last book, which I literally just finished before making this video, which is Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. Now, Gillian likes to make kind of dark, depressing, twisty novels. Love to meet her in real life and see what she's like, because she always makes these characters that are so, they're not really like black and white. They're kind of in the middle, like you can't really figure them out. They're like this big swirling mass of just scribbles, you know. But this is basically about a girl called Camille. She's a reporter in Chicago, and she has to go back to her hometown to try and figure out these murders, to report on these murders of these 2 little girls. And from the get-go you can see Camille doesn't have a good relationship with her mother. Her mother's just really strange. She has a little sister, her 13-year-old sister, who knew the murdered girls. She hardly knows her sister, so the book is kind of about her coming home, having to deal with her mother and her mother's strange ways, having to get to know her sister, who turns out to be kind of this little, basically like a Regina George. That's what her sister is. She's a little bit of a wicked wanton, I would say. But you kind of feel for the sister as well, because she has to deal with the mother. And then at the same time, she's having to try and figure out who killed these girls, report properly. She has her own issues from growing up in the town that she has to deal with. So the characters, I liked all the characters. They're pretty fleshed out. I really like, she has a nice relationship with her editor. He's kind of like this supportive father role. She never really had a proper father. She didn't know who her real dad was. She never really had a relationship with her stepdad. So her editor kind of is a father figure for her, and he really kind of looked after her, which I thought was really lovely. Because this girl really she needs looking after. She needs someone to just give her a hug and tuck her in. That's all she needs. You can't help but feel for her and everything that she's had to gone through. And you know, she actually had to suffer the death of her other sister a long time ago, and she still hasn't dealt with that. So the book has her coming back and also dealing with that on top of everything else. And then at the same time, you're trying to figure out who murdered the girls, and it's kind of one of those things that is there from the very start, but you're not quite touching on it until about halfway, 3/4 of the way through the book, and you're like, it has to be this person. And then there's kind of a shock twist as well. But yeah, so I think there's nothing really like bright about this book. It's a little bit depressing. It's quite dark, but it was a good read, and it was a pretty easy read as well. The pages are kind of fleshed out, so it was pretty. I went through it really quickly. I finished it in a day, less than a day, so I did enjoy it. And yes, so that was my last book that I read, as I only finished that about 20 minutes ago. So yeah, so I have a few different ones that I want to read. I might try and do this the bookshelf challenge. I can't remember the full one now, but I might give it a go. But I kind of cheated. I just have the library books that I need to read, so I just put them on my bookshelf here. So I'll just have to yeah, that's my bookshelf. That's what I'm going to do. It doesn't matter that I only put them there 5 minutes ago, but hey, yeah. So thanks for watching. If you've read any of the books and have opinions of them, I would love to hear it. If you have any recommendations, I would love to hear that too. So yeah, and I will see you soon.